Buenos dias. Hola. Me llamo Jeff. Welcome to Casa Cano, the House of Ill Dispute. And we're ready to introduce our fantastic host, Christian Cano. Come on.
Yay,
Bravo.
It feels so mellow without Ruth today.
Well, we're just going to have to perk things up a little bit without Ruth.
We're ruthless, which is
that's
we're
good.
ruthless.
I like
We're
that.
ruthless today. Ruth, we miss you. Our partner in crime, Ruth, is not with us today, which we do miss her. So thank you for the introduction and thank you for being here today.
Gracias.
We'll turn the music off. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Excellent. Alexa, stop. Excellent. Well, thank you. See, when Ruth's not here, things just don't seem to go as smoothly as they normally do. So.
Well, we'll compensate.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to put my mic on, but welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Today is September the 18th. Thank you for joining us. Everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live and those who join us later on YouTube and also on Facebook who watch us later, we want to thank you. It is a week after the election that never would end, and
but it did end.
It did end finally, and we're going to talk briefly about that. But we don't have a script once again today. We're going to talk about whatever's on our mind. I'd like to talk about impeachment for just a tiny bit.
That's fine.
Which I'm sure you're excited to talk about.
I'm always excited to talk about impeachment.
Yes, I'm sure you are. I'm going to start sharing us.
Yeah.
So Jeff, tell us your buttons and all that stuff. And,
sure.
And take the time that for people who would normally be with us.
So
here we go.
Usually we've got, last week we had a very full table, but this week it's just Christian and I. And so I've got my WikiLeaks mug here, and it's very important to the news that just came out about Julian Assange is that he was denied bail, so he's going to be in prison indefinitely, which is why I'm wearing this Stop Torture Now button. So it's very important. If you haven't been following his case, either on Twitter or on the web or on Facebook, you should brief yourself on what it is that happens to people who tell truths about what our government has done around the world, and consistent with that, or following that, there is a movie playing this week, and I think it's this week only because it's an independent movie. It's called Official Secrets, and I think it's playing through Thursday. It's playing at the Regal Ballantine here in Charlotte, but if you're outside of the town, you should be able to look it up on Fandango or wherever you look up movie times. And we got a group together, small group together, to see it. I posted the times on the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County and my own personal page so that people know about this movie. The short version of this is that when America wanted to invade Iraq, which we all look back on now, and 2/3 of the American public and veterans agree that it was a mistake. This shows what the sort of bullying activity that our government was trying to engage in with the UN members who wouldn't support the action against Iraq. And there was one brave whistleblower named Catherine Gunn who spoke up because she saw what was going on with the basically the U.S. Imperial forces trying to coerce, bribe, and bully the UN members to get them to vote in line with an invasion that no one really supported.
Okay, so, excellent. Yeah, I mean, you've been consistent about talking about WikiLeaks and
whistleblowers in general, and Edward Snowden's new book just came out.
So
it's the number one selling book in the world today.
So you have not been, one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you have been very consistent with your stances since I've known you.
Yeah.
Which is great. But you've also been willing to listen to other points of view.
Absolutely.
You're not as rigid as some radical Republicans, as we'll talk about briefly. But so, yeah, you've been consistent about that, and it's opened my eyes as far as surveillance and the first three amendments that we talked about kind of behind the scenes once. So thank you, Jeff. And I have my Need to Impeach shirt and my Need to Impeach button. The impeachment process is actually started. It technically, it's not called the impeachment process in the House because they haven't technically voted to start it, but we have started the investigation process in one of the committees. So even if you don't like impeachment and if you're against it, it started. Now, but the House has not officially voted to start the impeachment process, so it's being done kind of on the side, so to speak. So we'll hopefully we'll talk briefly about that as well. Ruth is joining us. Thank you, Ruth. Yes, Medicare for All. If Ruth was here, she would be showing her Medicare for All button. We'll show some new polling that just came out about that. But also, let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pandusi, which we forgot to last week. So it's the only show. Today is our 40th show. Wow. That's incredible, isn't it?
That's great.
Today's our 40th show, and I want to thank our sponsor, Manolo's Bakery. I was able to stop at Manolo's. Please help yourself, Jeff. With two people, it's a little bit harder to eat and talk at the same time, but I'm sure we can figure it out. Our friend Tara Long, who's running for County Commission at Large, her daughter likes the conchas, and we have 2 conchas for her that we'll save and somehow get to her.
I'll take this.
Yes. Please, any of them, doesn't make a difference. Something that's easy to eat. How about one of the, anyway, whatever you decide, Jeff. For those who are not familiar with Manolo's Bakery, they have been around since, for quite a while.
That's a work of art.
And it's beautiful. This is La Concha. I can't eat that one.
Oh, okay.
That one's for Tara Long, so we'll put that one. So anything else you want to hand me? Manolo's Bakery is in East Charlotte. It is at 4405 Central Avenue. It is a kind of a landmark on Central Avenue. Manolo is very involved in our community, but he's also a immigrant owner of a business. And if you want to contact Manolo's Bakery to maybe put your order in for some tamales or find out about ordering a tres leche cake or something like that, please call him at 704-568-2120. Manolo's Bakery at 4405 Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Call them at 704-568-2120. They're going through a little bit of remodeling in their front area, but they're open, and I visited them last night and got this wonderful. So thank you, Manolo, and please visit Manolo's Bakery.
Thank you, Manolo.
Yes, thank you. So I guess there's a couple things I want to talk about today, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I want to briefly talk about, you touched on...
I'll tell you if I mind.
We want to briefly talk about Iran. Sure. Your favorite war hawk guy was just on television before the show. Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, disagreeing with Trump because he's not being aggressive enough and he needs to bomb Iran and all kinds of stuff or whatever. So I want to talk briefly about Iran, maybe even talk about the need to impeach movement, which I know we're on opposite sides on that, and then whatever else you want to talk about. But before we talk about those things, let's talk about 2 very important polling. Yesterday was released the newest polling for Medicare for All. For those who support Medicare for All, which I'm one of those persons, because I believe if we spend the money on the front end, we will save the money on the back end. I know you're not in favor of Medicare for All. You have a different plan, and hopefully one day we'll actually sit around and debate the topic about Medicare for All. It looks like now the new polling says that 70% of people in the United States support Medicare for All, including 85% of Democrats. So that is up from, I think, 67%. It's now up to 70% of people in the United States. Of course, Big Pharma is spending millions to preserve the broken healthcare system. I'm reading off the talking points for the Medicare for All people, so if it sounds like... so that was interesting polling.
Right. I mean, the only thing that I would say about that is that Big Pharma would obviously like to preserve its big profit margins, and I don't think that the government coming in and squashing Big Pharma is the way to do it. I think we can take away some of the privileges that they get through the patent system and do some other restructurings to make sure that they don't have the power that they have. And I understand that a lot of people want to reduce the power of the big drug companies. I just don't think going through the government is the way to do it. Now, we'll have an extended conversation about this, probably with Probably, I would say within 3 or 4 weeks,
I
right?
hope so.
Where
Yeah.
we sit down and talk about.
I'd like to
those
have
issues.
one of the physicians from Medicare for All, the Healthcare Justice North Carolina group that Tara's a board member of. I'd like to have them on here, and of course us talking about it as well, because the way I have viewed it, and the reason I support it was because it's an option that has been presented to us that financially seems to make sense. There's not a lot of other than I think maybe some hearsay things about socialism or those kind of whatever. There's not another option. So if there is another option to present to us, then I think that either the Libertarian Party or the Republican Party need to present to people. We've had over a decade now for them to present some type of plan. But there is no better plan. The only plan that I have heard or seen is to tear this one down. I know you have suggested some things, but it hasn't really been here's a bill, here's a plan that we'd like to try to address this issue. And because there hasn't been a plan, I think this plan is picking up speed.
I don't disagree with that. I think the Republicans have been remiss. They're not a free market party. They're not a personal privacy party. They're not a freedom for patients, freedom for doctors party. They are a crony capitalist party, and they want to do they want to do bills that reward their donors, and their donors want to give money to candidates who protect their turf. So it's a very corrupt system that they are part of. I'm not saying the Democrats get a free pass on this. I'm just saying that the Republicans have been just. This is why we go back to the power of the parties. Whether it's the RNC or the DNC, and their sort of corrupt hold over the bill making, and the paralysis of the Congress itself.
Well, I think you're being very generous by calling them capitalists, because I don't think the Republicans the Republicans are a party of capitalism anymore.
And that the libertarian in you is coming out on this point, and I appreciate it, because that's a very good point. They're cronies. They don't believe in markets very much.
Well,
I just need. It's true that I do need a better term.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying is that they don't. They throw the word capitalism around a lot, but whenever they're referring, they're selective on what they want to be capitalist. So when they want to, when they're talking about certain things, they're almost socialists. How they are socialists with businesses. It seems like they really err on. Well, I don't know how to explain that. Traditionally they've been sort of a national infrastructure party. And even Trump himself is in this tradition of, we've got to be great on infrastructure. We've got to build highways, got to build bridges, we got to build up our society so we can have this great productivity. And so I guess this patent. The whole idea of drug patents and which is in the Constitution. I mean, the patent system is right there from the beginning. We want to make sure that we create economic growth, and if it requires taxpayers to pony up to create big incentives and big profits for the people who are going to do that work, then that's what we're going to do. Well, I want to shout out to a couple of people that have, Claudia, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, Ruth and the other people that are joining us as well. So let's skip from Medicare for All, because we have a whole show that we want to do about that. Let's go ahead and talk about some new polling about the need to impeach movement, which I'm wearing the shirt, and it's currently kind of on right now in the House of Representatives, except it's not called the impeachment, it's called the investigative, whatever they're doing. New polling right now shows that the support for need to impeach has not changed. It is still fluctuating between 35 to 38% of individuals who believe we should start the impeachment process. 46% believe we should not start the impeachment process. Now, that's overall polling. So there's still more people who believe we should not than believe that we should. But this is the important, I think, polling. In the Democratic Party, obviously it is a lot higher. 68% want Congress to start the impeachment process. 20% do not. And the reason I say that's important is because the Democrats are in charge of the U.S. House of Representatives,
That's right.
and if your party wants it, then what I've always said is that I don't, and I think I don't want to get back to the 9th congressional election, but I think this feeds into the 9th congressional election, is that we have Democrats that always are, in my view, that always want to run campaigns or run things worried about the non-democratic polling, as if though they can influence the non-democratic polling.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters, and this is the credit I give for the Republicans currently, is all they care about is Republican polling and the Republican base.
Yeah.
They don't care about Democrats. They don't care about you and I. They don't care about unaffiliated.
Yeah.
All they care about is their base and their polling, and they do things based upon that, and they get things accomplished for the people that want it get accomplished.
Yeah.
Our Democratic Party, we have always tried to balance this. I want to satisfy our base, but I also want to make the people who may vote for us happy. And as a result of that, we never accomplish anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thinking. And
Interesting,
so,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, my thoughts on, first off, on the impeachment. I guess, you know, there's certainly nothing wrong with starting an investigation, but I guess there's 2 points. There's one is the reality of it, you know, that he was investigated up the wazoo for over 2.5 years on this Russia thing, and so the certainly the Republican base is going to continue to look at that as the folly of the Democrats doing this thing and just trashing Trump for whatever reason, and so it feels like. Unless they find a real understandable smoking gun, which I don't think they're going to find, because I think all the bad news is out. You know, whether it's paying off Stormy Daniels or you know, his lawyer Michael Cohen, or all this stuff, the bad hires during the campaign of Manafort, all of the bad news is really out already. Okay, right. So unless you can find some complex money laundering scheme with Russian money going into Trump hotels and stuff, which would take quite a long time, and we've only got a year to the election. I think that people are going to perceive it as just trying to do more and more damage to the president, and I think it's just going to cause blowback. I think people are going to. I think the deplorable community, and I say that with affection because I know many people like that are just saying, well, screw what the Democrats do, screw what the Congress does. I mean, they're just going to say anything negative about Trump at all. They can't even say anything positive about Trump when he does anything right. So how can I believe them when they continue to say all these negative things and dress up these charges as something that's exciting and new and different and crazy, and no president's ever done that before, and we need to impeach this guy. I just think they're treading on very thin ice. I think it's going to blow back on them, and the deplorables are just going to build that outer shell, and he's going to sail in 2020.
I will agree with you that is a strategy that I think would fail if Democrats do that strategy. And I hope that I keep hoping we'll find out. I hope that we've learned from the McCready mistake, and the John Office mistake, and the Hillary mistake, and the Kay Hagan mistake. And I don't know how many more mistakes we have to make before we finally realize, as Democrats, that we do not know how to run elections. There are certain elections that we just do not know how to run because we continue to listen to the moderates in our party who continue to lose and continue to forget our base, the base of our party. And that is one thing the Republicans have been able to do. People ask all the time, I don't understand how America or the major urban areas of America can be mainly Democratic as far as voter registration, but the Republicans keep winning at certain elections because they have figured out a way to win when their backs up against the wall, and it's about your base. And so what I'm saying is I agree with you. I do think that the Democrats, we have to learn how to chew gum and walk at the same time, which I think sets us apart from the Republicans. I don't believe they know how to chew gum and walk at the same time. Right now, all they know how to do is go to their base. Democrats, we are so all over the place that we don't understand. And so I think how we approach this, and let's take our district for example, the district you and I live in, is I think it's possible to have the impeachment process, but also be able to compliment Trump whenever he's complimented. And the example I use, and I've been thinking about how the analogy to use, especially with the Trump situation. In the hotel business that I was, I guess, a member of for almost 3 decades now, or whatever, as employees get a discount if you stay in other hotels.
Right.
It is against the rules to get discounts that are outside of the people that are allowed to get your discounts.
Right.
So, for an example, if you wanted to stay in Key West and use, hey, Christian, can you give me the hookup and get my discount? And I got you the discount, and you are not a member of my family, I could get written up or get fired by that brand or whatever.
Right.
It's done all the time.
Right.
But that's, you know, we just kind of, this is my brother-in-law, you know, or whatever, and I give you the employee, whatever.
Yeah.
This is the same way that I think, this is how I think Trump is going to get caught. And this is to my point where my posting about need to impeach. The need to impeach, what has not been uncovered by the Mueller report is, in my view, the financial gains that Trump and his family are getting or that are being promised because of favors. I don't know that that's the case, but I think that it's just, it doesn't look right. So, for example, the one that we talked about from yesterday was in 2014, Trump was saying that Saudi Arabia needs to pay for their own, and we should not be fighting wars for Saudi Arabia, and this. And now that he's president, and now that they're looking to get real estate investments in Saudi Arabia, in the kingdom, and also now that the Saudi government is staying exclusively at Trump hotels in Washington D.C. and in New York City, and also in Ireland. Their big entourages are going to Ireland. We need to know if Trump is profiting from that, and if that is influencing his new decisions now. Is it influence his decisions? I don't know that. That's not something that I know, because I'm not privy to whatever. But I think any rational person can say that if you and I were doing something like that, it would raise a flag, and we would be concerned about that.
That's right.
And so, because of that, I believe and that's something that Trump does very often. He's the employee that always skirts the line on what is allowed and what isn't allowed, knowing that you're never going to say anything to him.
Right.
And because I believe that everyone should play on a level playing field, that we have to reel him in, and we have to say, this is not acceptable. You have every right to make a profit for your hotels, just not while you're president. Because we don't know if someone is influencing decisions you're making. I can tell you by your tweets, it looks like it. But I don't know that. And so we have a right to investigate it, hoping that will stop what he's doing. Just as if an employee did that same thing, I would pull the employee in and I would say, I see that you did this. We're going to start looking at this, hoping that would stop it. You don't want to fire him, but you want to stop it.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
And then you say, good job, by the way. Go to work on Monday.
So I do believe that people who are in business and who are in government clearly have conflicts. I remember when Alan Greenspan went to work at the Fed, you know, he had to put his money in a trust with, Oppenheimer funds. And so the idea that he was somehow separated from his money, but he was making decisions for the rest of the economy independent of what his own personal money was doing was completely ridiculous. Okay, so it's completely ridiculous to believe that anybody who's got a lot of money and who's got a lot, it was not going to benefit from this stuff. So that's the perspective that I've got on this stuff.
But we don't even do that.
Well, what do you mean?
He's not even putting his stuff in a blind trust.
No. But
we're talking about Trump.
I'm talking about Trump. But I was using the example of an extreme case where the chairman of the Federal Reserve, going into power, has to put all of his money aside to be run by friends of his.
Wink.
And
like Pittenger put the land dealings in his wife's name. Wink, wink.
Okay, so we know that stuff goes on. We know that there are going to be conflicts. We know that there are legal structures you can set up, and there kind of worth the paper they're written on.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also what you say is his aggressive style, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he would be kind of a corner cutter, right? Well, again, let's put this in context because I remember during the SNL crisis of the late '80s. There were a lot of there were the Keating Five, right? There were the and that included John McCain and Dennis DeConcini and John Glenn, and I'm trying to remember the two others.
Johns.
But they were compromised by the fact that they were getting donations, and the fact that they were getting these donations, contributions to their campaigns, meant that people were suspicious that they were making they were not making independent decisions. They were making decisions for the benefit of this particular constituent who happened to be Keating. Now the interesting thing about Keating was that he was more naked about it than other people, right? So he said at this meeting, and it was more like a social meeting, and with one of the Keating Five, it might have been Alan Cranston from California. He said, there were some words exchanged like, "We gave you money, and I hope we're getting what we paid for." So he said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but what happens is that's not appropriate, right? It's not appropriate for, and just to take the analogy up to Trump, it's not appropriate for Trump to be on the phone with MBS and say, "Look, we'll come fight for you if you stay in my hotels and then you contribute money." Right, so that would be the absolute smoking gun.
I don't think that Trump would ever do that.
That's right. But if it's happening, let me finish. If it's happening, just like the SNL thing, the SNL owner giving money to congressmen, if it happens separate in time at different times and separate in different places, essentially, there's you can't make a case for bribery because they have mastered the system of finance.
Exactly.
And so when you pay a congressman and when you donate to his or her campaign, you're not getting anything directly. What you're getting is access, right? And then they know what it is that you want.
Well,
the words do not have to be spoken. Contracts do not have to be drawn up. This is the way the system's working. So you got to tell me whether you think Trump is doing anything differently or on a different scale than everything we've seen in the past.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This is I do, and this is the only way that I know how to kind of express the difference. As get back to the hotel analogy that I used. We know in the hotel business that people do that all the time.
Right.
We know if you're in the retail business, your friends get your employee discount at Macy's or at Whole Foods or whatever. We know that happens. And good employees do that. That's because they justify it as, well, this is the reason I'm working for only $9, $10, $12 an hour is for the benefits.
The perks.
Yes, I'm working here at Belk's this holiday season for the benefits, so we can get some good Christmas presents. We know that that's what you do. Every once in a while, you get the employee that does it so blatantly. Right. And those are the employees that you end up having to fire. And every other employee looks at them and goes, "How stupid!" I mean, it's so. Your buddy came in and said, and it was caught on camera. Some people just do things because they just don't think anyone's paying attention.
Blago.
Yes. So with
the
Trump,
guy who's selling the.
So with Trump, I believe that I agree with you. That's the reason I think it's very important that we are very careful with the type of people we put into Congress. That was one of the concerns I had about Dan McCready, was his ability to be able to accept donations and just push solar energy instead of wind energy and other energy, or to even be against breaking up Duke's monopoly, because a lot of his investments are with Duke. His family, his wife's family, all the people that supported him in South Charlotte, they don't want Duke's monopoly to be broken because that's how they've maintained their power in South Charlotte. And so he would be against. Even though he said he was being green, he really is only green if Duke can benefit from that. So I would be cautious about putting someone like him in office, because we know that he would be working for that cause.
That's right.
But Trump, it seems to be right now, not afraid of any retribution.
That's right.
With his hotels. He doesn't mandate that the military in Ireland stay at his resorts.
Right.
They stay at his resorts, and they are 50 miles away from the airport compared to 10 miles from the other hotels they used to stay at. So the way he's making money three ways. Even though he said he's not making money. In the hotel business, there are three parts of a hotel. There's the ownership. There's the branding, and then there's the hotel management. Every leg of that a hotel makes money by managing the hotel, by owning the hotel, and then also by branding the hotel. So when our U.S. military flies into Ireland, and then instead of staying at the hotels they used to, now stay and travel 50 miles to stay at the new hotel, the resorts that is 50 miles away, he's making money 3 times. It's not like he owns a Marriott and he's only making money one time by when he owns. He's making money 3 times, and that is, to me, that's very blatant, and that's the way I believe that we're going to be able to rein him in. I don't think that the Saudi government and the Saudi entourages are staying in D.C. or staying in Washington or in New York or in Ireland, taking these trips to Ireland. They're spending tons of money. I mean, the Politico and stuff are doing tons of articles every time they stay, and I don't think Trump is on the phone going, "Hey, I really like it." They're doing it because they know he's the type of individual. He's kind of a used car salesman type of guy that says, "I have no control on where they stay. If they want to stay and spend all that money at my hotel, I'm not making any money. Junior's over the hotel business now. I'm not making any money, even though he's making money." So will that, when an investigation starts, and like in the hotel business, when we pull that employee in and say, "I see what you're doing. You can't shit a shitter. I know what you're doing." Usually they go back and go, "Hey, George, they on to me. Let's reel it in a little bit, and let's not be so obvious about it anymore." That's really what I think it can occur. Do I think that he should be impeached? Because I do think there are things that he's doing that are beneficial. Yes. And that's the message I think that we have to have in the future elections in districts like ours, where there are so many people that like the things that are Trump that are doing. There's some things they don't like. But there are some things that they see as just unfair. When we put that to their, if you work in Robeson County and you work for Walmart and you understand what it's like to get the Walmart discount, and you know what it's like when someone is taking advantage of that discount, if you put it into a working man's terms and say, "This is what he's doing," is that fair? No, that's not fair. But I like what he's doing. So let's let him know that we know what he's doing, and we're not gonna. That's not acceptable. And allow him time to rein in. And if he doesn't, then we have to start the impeachment process. And that's to me, that's fair.
Well, I don't know if the Congress is in a position where it could sort of modulate its scolding of the president.
No, I don't.
You know, and you know, when I see these grand military budgets, right? The last thing I'm thinking about is military staying in hotels. I'm thinking about the bombs that we're dropping on innocent people around the world. So
as far as impeachment, that's a way I think that we can approach the impeachment process. Satisfy our base, because we know 70% of Democrats want the impeachment process to be, pardon me, and then also not offend the deplorables by saying, "I agree with you. Trump is doing some things that he's making you feel more nationalized," or whatever the case is. You know, he's doing things that you want.
Well,
and then to say, "But we just want him to play." What does it take? And then maybe they would say, "Okay, so that's right." And then once that polling turns, maybe he'll turn around.
I don't disagree with that. But I think it's slightly backwards. I think if I were a Democrat and I were in this motley crew of weird party segments, I would. You know, Tulsi is being banned from the debates, right? And it seems like the Democrats are attacking Trump from the right on foreign policy. There has to be some voice within there has to be some debate on this. We can't be constantly attacking him from the right because there are too many latent anti-war Democrats and progressive that are just outraged by this behavior. That is not inspiring your base.
Exactly.
You know, you can have thoughtful conversations about where it is that we need to protect American interests, but if you're not having those conversations, if you're just saying we need to go into Iran, we need to bomb Russia, we need to kick the Russians out, the Russians are tripping over our democracy. If you're, you know, we don't think that Trump standing in the DMZ in Korea is a good visual. You know, well, look, I'm a libertarian. I think that's a great visual.
Sure.
You know, the fact that he would go out and do that. And if you're not doing that, if you're not saying there's something that you agree with, if you can't, if everything is just attack it, he can't do anything good.
Yes.
Then deplorables are going to win.
And that would work the same way the other way as well. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why the Republican Party cannot grow anymore.
That's right.
Other than just continue to hold on to their base.
That's right.
The only way they're going to be able to grow is they're going to have to say something positive about Obama.
Yeah.
Or anyone.
That's right.
Okay. And they have come to the calculated conclusion that they're just not going to do that until they absolutely have to.
Right.
And this last election proved that they didn't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Bishop ran exactly with President Trump.
That's right.
Right? He ran to his base. He won the base. And we can look at them. I was going to show you these numbers before the show, but you can't see these numbers. But you can go on to the Board of Elections. If you look at the difference between the 2016 and the 2018, or this last election, this first one here, I'm going to show you and see if you can see this, is the 2016 election. Okay? If you look at this here, Robert Pittenger won 58% of Mecklenburg County. Okay? And to his credit, in this last election, Dan McCready won 55.96% of the Mecklenburg County.
Yeah.
Now, the pundits that you saw on the Charlotte Observer, and even Jim Morrill's video that he put the day off, they completely have no idea, in my view. They have a glimpse, but they don't understand exactly what the difference is that made. The white women voter that Dan McCready went after so aggressively and that he based his whole campaign on. Yeah. He did flip in South Charlotte and also in Union County. Right. He was able to bring that out. I don't think it was because they love Democrats. I think it's because they just don't like Trump. They were unhappy with Trump. And his whole message to them against Harris, but also against Bishop, was Trump, 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 Trump. He hated Trump, he hated Trump, he hated Trump. Now, I don't think McCready, he tried to play it both ways. He tried to say that he wanted to work across all parties, but all he said was bad things about Trump. He never said anything positive about Trump. All he said was negative about Trump. So I don't think he necessarily won anyone over. He just made that block of individuals. In 2016, they voted for Trump. And then in 2018, they voted against Trump. I don't believe they voted for Dan McCready. They just wanted some, and we know that. I think we know that as those of us who are out and about, people saying, I don't really like Dan McCready, but I can't handle Dan Bishop. Because they see Bishop as Trump. So that's really what they want over. But then you look at the cities, you look at the districts or the areas that voted for Trump, but this time stayed with Trump. And those are Democratic districts. And so you look at... is
that Robeson?
Yes, Robeson County, and also Richmond County, and Cumberland County, and Bladen County. Robeson County in 2016 went 52.12% for the Democratic, I won't say who it is, for the Democratic person, all right?
We gotta take credit.
47% for the Republican, which is Robert Pittenger. So 52.12% in 2016, and then you look at this last election, it dropped 50.45, and Dan Bishop, or the Trump person, went up. In the Democratic, Democratic district, the numbers. Dan McCready lost more people in that district, and Trump picked up more people in that district. And I believe the reason is because he did not inspire A, the Democrats to come out, and B, the Trump people stayed with Trump. There was no hatefulness like there was in South Charlotte and Union County.
Right.
And I believe it was social economic. Because if you're a South Charlotte privileged white woman who wears the pink hat and marches in the thing once a year and says, this is outrageous, then you go to yoga and have your coffee and you're volunteering for this, you probably have a little bit more dispensable income than a person in Robeson County, which is the poorest county in North Carolina. It is the largest county in North Carolina. You like Trump. Those aren't the reasons you don't like Trump. You like Trump because he's putting the wall up. He's not getting those illegal immigrants here to take our jobs, because I barely have a job anyway, so I don't want anybody taking my job. So that person still likes Trump. And the Democrat did not even try to talk about issues that were important. All the Democrat Dan McCready talked about was South Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, those issues, people who have more dispensable income, people who hate Trump for most social reasons, and what I call the bread and butter table issues like jobs and those kind of things. They resonated. Trump still resonates with those areas because they still voted for him.
That's right. And
then you look at Cumberland County, which was a military area.
But it's really only a third. It's the lower third of Cumberland.
That is true. McCready Bishop barely won, 49.58% in that time period, and then the one before. Kind of hang the same. So there was not that much difference in that area.
They're pretty evenly split.
To me, this is what is most telling.
Yeah.
The alleged voter fraud. Okay, it was voter fraud.
Yeah.
All right. Who was blamed to it?
Election
fraud. Election fraud.
Yeah.
The alleged election fraud that occurred. Actually, you would think people would be so upset that those Republicans were trying to take their vote away.
Yeah.
And it actually went down. So Dan McCready actually lost Bladen County by a wider margin than I did in 2016.
Yeah.
Almost 9.5 points he lost. And
so you know what the theory is.
Yes.
The theory is that and I think this is true actually. I don't think it's just a theory.
Yeah.
Dulce, the master of election fraud, was not the only operative.
Yes.
And he split territory.
Yes.
And his territory and his people and his network were the ones that went down. But the other network, the BPIC and what's her name, Wood.
The Democratic. Let's say
Wooten or something.
Yes. The Democratic.
They kept quiet this election.
Yes.
And they played by all the rules, if they played at all.
Yes. I don't think they played at all. They didn't want to risk any.
That's right.
Insight into them. But I agree.
So that ballot harvesting is a very successful strategy. If you don't do it, you lose.
But I think it's just for me in a humorous way, it speaks volumes to the almost insincerity of the Dan McCready campaigin. His whole thing was, I'm voting for your voting rights. I'm making sure
this
that
was
this
stolen
election
from you.
We're I did not fight in Afghanistan to take your voting rights away. He spent maybe 3 days in Bladen County during the entire time period. And they paid him back by saying, you weren't here before, I'm not voting for you now. And I think that you would think that if they felt, and it's not what I'm saying, it's how they felt, if they felt that he was the savior of voting rights, he's never stood up for voter ID or for disenfranchised people or anything like that. But now he tried to carry himself as like the Martin Luther King of voting rights. And I think that the communities that were most impacted saw through the baloney, and they said, I don't believe that.
He never said anything substantial on this topic, even when I debated his proxy, Aaron Simpson, at the Black Political Caucus. Simpson was just feeble. Didn't say anything substantial. You can find this on my YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to go back and listen to it. I actually had something of substance to say. he had nothing to say, and then you look at the whole record of however many months he was campaigning.
But he did squeeze.
He said nothing substantial on this issue.
But he did try to squeeze 24 appearances in within 2 months to say that I'd have 24 town hall meetings. Yeah, you had 24 campaign events in 2 months.
That's right.
They weren't really campaigns.
That's right. With supporters. With
but
people who were.
But I think anyone who saw the 2016 election, the 2018 election, the redo 2018 election, if you look at, because now you can see our 8 counties, because no one had ever seen how these 8 counties vote before, but now we have a true reflection of, you have an idea of how you can run. If you run as a Democrat, solid to the base, you can possibly win the 6 counties east of, you're never going to win Union County. You can continue to try to flip people over only if you run against Trump. Because you're not going to win the Trump people, but you're going to get the people who don't like Trump. In South Charlotte, it's still leaning red. It's still the people who right now. The people are still going to vote against Trump. So in the next election, I believe those people that McCready flipped over, which we appreciate, they're still going to flip. If Trump is the nominee, they're still not going to vote for Trump, or they won't vote. One of the two. But you definitely won't get the Democrats if you don't inspire the Democrats. So you have nothing to lose to run if you try to run in the middle, you're going to get killed by Dan Bishop. You're going to get killed because they're just going to go after you. So I do think that you can run as a Democrat who is heavily Democratic on Democratic principles. But also compliment Trump and say there are things that he's done for this district that we need to do for this district that are very good. And I'm not running against Dan Bishop. I'm just saying Dan Bishop is doing what he needs to do. He's going to be, but this seat should not be a puppet for Trump. This seat should be who represents the district, not Trump. And if you want someone who is there for Trump, vote for Dan Bishop. If you want someone there who will vote for this district and give Trump credit when credit is due, and hold him to when it needs to, then vote for me. I think that's the only way you can win the next election. Anyway, so that is, so if you're watching this, let's talk about infrastructure. You basically kind of talked about that. That was one of the many things that I think that obviously that was not discussed during this last election was infrastructure. We know that infrastructure in the 9th Congressional District and also all around North Carolina is crumbling. It is something that we need to take the grab of before. I think it's already way past what we need. We have bridges crumbling. We have hurricane. They're still recovering from Hurricane Matthew from 2016. They're still doing Florence, some flooding from Florence. We have so many things that are happening in the east part of our district that maybe we don't notice as much in the newer part of our district. But on the other part, that's concerning to them. So I believe that we need to start addressing that issue. And in this last election, no one said anything about infrastructure. I mean, it was just about kind of more smooth campaigning.
Right. Well, so let me
farming issues. Those issues.
So let me.
I put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. Let me confess my bias here because we both live here in South Charlotte. And Charlotte is a booming metropolitan area, and every time I get on the freeway somewhere, there's something going on, and it all looks new. It's like, have I been here before? So we're trying to accommodate the growing population, and so when you say stuff is crumbling, I don't see that. I don't see that here. So I see a place that's being impacted impacted by density. I was just south of Plaza Midwood, where I take my daughter to work, there are these nice little old homes, this old Charlotte, and then you kind of look a block away, and it's like blocks and blocks of this 3- and 4-story, super dense housing up there, and that's just happening all over the city. When Alex Merced, the vice chair of the LP, came down here thinking about moving here, I drove him around town, and I was shocked to see all the new stuff. So
it is.
So it's quite dazzling. So having said that,
whereas Anson County, Richmond County, Union County,
that's right.
Union County not as much, but all of the other counties east of that, Robeson County, they are in dire need of some infrastructure. They look exactly the same as they probably did 20 years ago.
Yeah. So
roads and everything.
So then the question becomes: tell me where the traffic jams are, or is it that they don't have their roads aren't as nicely paved as we have here in South
I
Charlotte.
think it's different. Yeah, I think it's different. I know that what the feedback that we received and when we were there, they were more concerned about bridges, about schools, about government infrastructure, not necessarily like what we are.
Okay, so their basic services like the schools,
yes,
the
school.
routes.
So
the roads,
when McCready, and I think this is the mistake of Dan McCready, and I think this showed the disconnect between McCready's campaign and his advisors and the people he paid and the people that supported him, that they looked at it from the lens of a South Charlotte person. They didn't understand when they do polling and in those areas they said that education was very important. They didn't understand, and healthcare was very important. They didn't understand healthcare to them and education to them is different than healthcare and education to us. Healthcare and education to Robeson County or Anson County or Scotland County means the building. It means
so it's interesting. So they view it as kind of an infrastructure.
It means the hospital. It doesn't necessarily mean pharmacy prices. It means the actual hospital. It means because they still have clinics, but those clinics are so old and they need the infrastructure so bad. And when they talk about, they're talking about different things than how we see it. And so when he did that polling, which I understand why they did it, and they talk about those things, it means something completely different than if you come from a rural farming area than it does if you live in South Park.
Right.
It means completely different.
Well,
and that's the disconnect I think that they had. And also when they talk about climate change and those kind of things, which is hopefully we can learn from that. Climate change means something different here in South Charlotte than it does in Cumberland County and Bladen County. Climate change means Gen X. It means the pollution to the drinking water. Climate change here means coal ash. It's a different type of climate change. There it means hog waste. It means those things. Here it means different things. And the message can't be generic. We talked about this before. You almost have to have like 3 or 4 different campaigns you run.
That's right,
And they ran just a generic campaign for one section, and the other sections it means differently. So when Dan Bishop said, I went to the Farming Bureau 4 times, that means a lot to those to people who live in those areas. Dan McCready didn't go to any of that and did not understand the power of showing up.
So Bishop did show up.
Bishop did show up to 4 Farming Bureau candidate forums or events. That means a heck of a lot in those regions because that is their culture.
Right.
You know, agriculture is a culture.
That's right.
Just like Hispanic culture is a culture. And all cultures are a culture. And when you ignore that, that means something to them. And so that I hope that we can learn from these elections, bad and good. There's a lot of great things that Dan McCready did.
No, I totally agree. I
think we can learn a lot.
You know, I like your point about the basically environmental policy. The way that people view it down here. I think people are sort of overshooting the mark on climate change in this area because it's sort of I think of it sometimes as kind of this, you know, privileged abstract idea that people can have about the way for here. But when you do go out into these counties,
it means different.
It does. It does. Whether they're thinking about the water pollution or the storm drainage, right? I mean, that's clearly a big
storm drainage.
That was a huge issue, and we went to the Fayetteville meetings a couple times, and that's a huge issue for them. You know, just the fact that this stuff needs to be upgraded. So how do you make decisions on that, right? Again, you have to talk to people who understand, you know, the financing of these projects. You know, whether local taxpayers should have skin in the game, whether they should put up some initial funding, whether they should invest in long-term bonds. You know, what's the life of these projects? You know, there is such a thing as public finance, and there is such a field where there are a lot of experts who go in and talk about these things. And there are how you build new buildings, how you pay for them, how you do drainage. And, you know, as far as I can tell, McCready wasn't ever talking about any of that stuff.
No, but I don't blame McCready for not talking about it. I blame him for taking the advice of people who advised him for not talking about it. If he had spent just a little bit of time and listened to other people instead of those people in the Detroit or whoever was advising him, I'm not really sure who was advising him. as a candidate, you have to take their advice, but you also have to just get out there. But I think that has to do with his disconnection. Right. Bishop was smart enough to know I can take people's advice, but I got to just sit down at the McDonald's in Wadesboro and just watch people.
Yeah.
Because that's how you know if the advice they're giving me is going to connect. And he was smarter because he's been in the he knows.
That's right. Yeah. But I would have liked to have been in a discussion with Dan Bishop about some of these projects because he's an attorney, he's a legislator, he's had to look at some of these bills, but still. It doesn't appear to me that he's really a public finance guy.
No,
that he's really a deplorable pro-life. He's really an authoritarian conservative.
But so let's end our show with just that. Okay, so we do have a new congressman. The election that would never end finally ended, and we have a lot to learn from it. Everyone is catching their breath for the next couple of months, and then we'll see who decides to file in December. Hopefully we'll have all parties put someone up to plate so we can have discussions, even though it's a very short time period to the primary and then the election. We always need to have, I think that benefited this election and will always benefit us from here to the future. But one of the things that we know is that we have a new congressperson, whether you like the person or not, he is our congressperson. Congressperson Dan Bishop is our new congressperson. Okay. Was sworn in yesterday.
I'll try not to be angry.
I wish our wonderful friend Tara Long was here today, who's running for county commission at large in 2020. Yeah. She posted, and she's such a loving heart person that she as a legislative advocate and as a healthcare advocate, she attends all meetings, which she should. Right. Regardless of the Republican, Democrat, we're all neighbors. It doesn't make a difference. She's not tribal, which I appreciate her. Like Pat Cotham is not tribal.
That's right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
She had congratulated, I believe, our new congressperson, our city council person. She got so much backlash from the people that just hate all the time anyway.
Right.
The haters.
Oh, Ed. Yeah, she posted complimentary
and she got so much backlash. How can you do this? And she tried to... Sometimes you just gotta ignore them and understand that they're not happy no matter who.
That's right.
They're professional unhappy people.
That's right.
And they are part of the Democratic Party. There's also people who are part of the Republican Party that are like that as well. Yeah. And what you do is just say, I understand what whatever, and you just move on. But I think what she was trying to say is what I have tried to do as well is Dan Bishop, congratulations on being a new congressperson. You are a representative. We're going to try to work with you, but when we need to stand up against you, we're going to stand up against you. When we have to run against you, we'll run against you. So he is a new congressperson. Now, his first official day is today. Yeah. Right? And he represents our new district at least for a couple of months until we file again, and then he'll be campaigning all over again.
That's right.
Which I'm sure he'll run. Yeah. What do you think his first act is going to be?
Well, we know what his first.
I know I'm setting you up.
Yeah. and that's. He's fulfilling his promise to go after the infanticide.
See, I don't know what that meant.
Okay, so
explain it. Say that again. It's called infanticide.
Yeah,
infanticide.
So you know what a homicide is.
Yes.
And you know what a suicide is.
So they call it infanticide. Or you're calling it?
Well, no, this is a common term.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Infanticide.
Okay.
Because it has been practiced historically. People, one of the ways, let's be real, people. One of the ways that people, humans dealt with children who were born with birth defects and problems was simply infanticide.
Yeah.
On the idea that...
Which, in layman's terms, is abortion.
No,
Okay.
Infanticide is, the baby is born. It's separate from the mother. The umbilical cord has been.
Okay, so this is after the baby has been born.
This is after the baby has been
born.
So
he is going after. He's not.
Yeah. So
is that his way of touching abortion?
Yeah, it is his way. It is his way of firing up his base to his pro-life base to say we must end these horrible practices. And then gather more steam to eventually promote a pro-life Supreme Court justices and stuff to sort of ramp that up. But in fact, Congress already did a whole investigation of this where they looked at 10 or 20 years of what was going on.
It's an omnibus issue, but it's something.
These are very gray cases because it's always been in the context of hospice. The baby is not healthy. The baby will probably not survive.
Jeff,
the question is, what do we do? So
So Jeff,
I put out a reward.
Yes.
I said, you find if you can find a Democrat or a Libertarian or a Green who believes in infanticide, that is the killing of a live, healthy, breathing baby. Live, healthy, breathing baby. $25. And they can come on this show and they can talk about why they believe in infanticide. We'll raise it. We'll raise it to $50.
Okay. Okay. $1, $51. You heard it first on this show. If you can find to Dan Bishop's new movement, is that something that he is? Is he?
No, that was because of several decisions around in New York.
Is he just talking about it, or does he want to propose legislation, or what?
It's the pro-life people who don't like to think about this issue in a nuanced way, and they don't like the idea that doctors and women can make decisions together. So they're very anti-privacy in that regard. They don't. He just wants to fire up this base and get them angry and get them out of the polls. And if you go up by Latrobe and you're driving by, those people are very angry.
And the Lumbee tribe will vote for you because they are Jessicrats.
Right, and I have to confess that I'm a minority in my own party as a secular candidate and as a pro-choice candidate. I only represent about a third of the libertarians in the state.
But this is why this gives us an insight of how we should run in 2020 and in against whoever, which I assume it would be Bishop. I don't think there's anything wrong with a Democrat or Libertarian or whatever. Like, for an example, I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
But I don't believe the government should make that decision. I believe that's settled law with the Supreme Court. I think that you can run in this district, in any district, being pro-life, but also believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe it's how you message it. Right. So I believe that what you should, if a Democratic person, if I were running in this race in 2020, what I would say is, I am pro-life. I'm not ashamed to be pro-life because of my personal religious beliefs. I'm pro-life. It has nothing to do with the job that I'm applying for, other than I want to make sure that I pass legislation to keep people that are living better, because that's pro-all life.
Right.
I do not believe impacting a woman's right to choose. I believe that interferes with, the government interferes with her decision. It's the libertarian part of me.
That's right.
I believe that you can message it that way. So what you do, that I think most pro-life people are what I call rational pro-life people. If they're Catholic, if they're evangelical, whatever. There's a very few people that are radical pro-life people that would push this agenda. So you would soften the pro-life backlash because a Catholic person in our district would say, that's the kind of pro-life I am. But my wife takes contraceptives, which is against our church. But there's certain things that we do before the baby's born and after the baby's born. And I believe when you run that way, you soften that. So I don't believe there's anything wrong with running that way. I believe what is wrong is when you don't have the courage to make that statement, which Dan McCready did not. He acted like he supported women who the right to choose, but he wouldn't say it. He acted like he supported people who were the pro-life people, but he wouldn't say it because he kept saying, I've got 4 kids, insinuating I would never abort any of those kids. That was his way of saying that. That's why he says it. And so it didn't work because it wasn't enough. So my point is, Bishop is doing that because he's trying to excite his base. So what would be the reason, what would be wrong with a Democrat exciting their base by need to impeach? That's just smart.
It's just a strategy. I guess I don't have a strong opinion about it, other than the fact that
it makes sense.
Other than the fact that if you
Medicare for all, need to impeach.
If you can't say anything good about what the president has done or is
and
trying to do,
I like the fact that the president has tapered down, even though I ridiculed him for tweeting that tweet, which is a reversal for 2014, saying we're waiting for Saudi Arabia to tell us what to do. Like I said, he's pimping them out. He has since backtracked and said, and I think it's because of the outrage that he would use the military, he's now saying we're going to try diplomacy. And so he has reined in, and that's why Lindsey Graham was on saying he's not doing enough. I don't agree. He's trying to goad him into war. So I do appreciate the fact that you can sway the president. It's bad. But you can sway the president, which is why I believe he makes a better Democratic president than he would a Republican president. Because if we maintain control of the House, and if we win control of the Senate, imagine what we could do by going in there and saying, President Trump,
Yeah.
We need to pass infrastructure legislation. We're going to call the Trump infrastructure legislation. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It would get passed.
That's right.
Because he's so vain.
That's right.
We don't have to impeach him.
That's right.
Now, are you going to stop the impeachment process? No. We're going to continue it, but you pass us what we need first. You got to work the way he works.
Yeah.
I'm
brand all the bridges out in Robinson County. The Trump Bridge, the Trump School,
the Trump. Wait.
the Trump Health Clinic.
Don't we have the Eisenhower Highway?
Oh yeah, yeah, we do.
We can rename 74 the Trump Boulevard.
Trump.
Hey,
we'll just call it the Donald.
Whoever runs for 2020, run on that platform to change the name of we will get the much needed infrastructure needed on 74. We will expand our ports in North Carolina so we can export internationally. We will call it the Trump Port of North Carolina.
That's right.
And the Trump Highway, and run on that. And we get infrastructure in. We'll get Trump happy. We'll get pro-life people.
That's right. But we'll just make sure all the signage is in spray paint.
Exactly. So we can spray paint over it?
Exactly.
All right. I think we have run over, and actually we did perfect today. Anything else you want to talk about quickly before we read our constitutional quote of the week, which I've got it flagged for you already?
You've got it flagged?
Yes, I was a good producer today.
That's fantastic.
Once again, Ruth, we miss you. Thank you, Tara Long, for joining us. Yes, you can tell the election, at least for now, is over. Our viewership has gone down. It'll go up, actually waiting later because people always want to know what we say. We're going to read amendment, I believe it is 7. All right.
Okay. In suits at common law where the value controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So this is the
trial by jury.
It's trial by jury and double jeopardy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. So
$20. Wow.
Yeah. So
has that changed? I wonder.
Yeah.
I wish we had our attorney here.
Adjusted for inflation, I think it's probably closer to about $5,000.
Listen, we are going to add. We haven't talked about this, but I thought I'd email you and Ruth later.
Yeah.
We're going to try to add another show to our platform. We are on every Wednesday, of course, and I hope you continue to join us as we approach our year in December. It's hard to believe that we've been doing this for a year. Is that incredible?
That is incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but I would like to add, and I'll get permission from you guys, at least once a month, immediately after our show, we'll take a 5-minute break. It won't happen today, but then we'll have Jeff and another person debate an issue that is important to our LatinX community, but also to our region. We did this originally with Jeff and Alan Smith. They talked about climate change. And I think it's important that, and we'd like to hopefully get a more permanent kind of person who hosts that show. I think Jenny would be a good person.
Yeah.
We'd maybe try her out for a while.
She knows her stuff.
She knows her stuff. She does her research.
Yeah.
And maybe once a month, if it works, maybe every other week. And, because we have so many important issues that we just can't debate because this is more conversation.
That's right. That's
right. But, Medicare for all.
That's right, yeah.
Abortion,
military, we're gonna have Stoney next week.
Yeah, yes. I forgot to tell you that. Stoney Rushing, the county commissioner from Union County, also was a candidate for the congressional district here, the Republican candidate
in the primary.
In the primary, he will be joining us next week, which I'm really excited because I'm sure we will have much. You will finally have someone on your side. Well, I don't want to say your side. But someone that probably you can question a little bit more or whatever.
Well, and he obviously knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff. He's a good communicator.
He knows his stuff, so I'm not going to...
Very important.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're not here to trump anybody, but it's important for us to listen to those perspectives. And maybe he can give us some understanding of... Because I know that he had briefly talked about this when I heard him saying when he ran for Congress in the primary... the knowledge he has on Union County and some of the other rural areas that other people did not.
He has lived in all of these counties, and he is very authentic.
Yes.
And it's important. I like him.
Yeah. And I can relate to Stoney because, for an example, this past summer we had the luxury of spending a lot of weekends at our family friends' houses, house in the lake, which is obviously different than South Charlotte, but it's like so relaxing, so peaceful. Yeah. You learn to appreciate the environment and
that's right. Yeah.
All kinds of wonderful wildlife and stuff. but we also go periodically, and we're going this weekend out to the country where our family is, which is country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to even get a signal. There's the cows, the chickens, and all kinds of stuff. And when I'm out there and just going to the square or whatever, it is, you start to understand the differences between rural life and urban life, but also just the differences between privileged life and, I don't want to say it's not privileged, because I think they're more privileged than we are in many ways.
Yeah.
And things that have to, just things in general.
Yeah.
But things are, the perspective is different. And so when I hear certain things out there, I cannot relate to that. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I can't wait to get back home, whatever.
That's right.
But then sometimes I'm out there and I'm like, God, I wish I could be out here forever. It is a different type of need and want.
That's right.
And I'm going to leave on this interesting thing. All right. These are the richest zip codes in North Carolina. Are you ready?
Ready.
So, if you live in one of these zip codes, please remember us the next time we run for office. All right. In North Carolina, the number one richest zip code is 28207. It's in Charlotte. Their median income is $131,000. The total house code, I don't really know how that breaks
Household.
down.
The total household. There's 3,800.
Oh, there's 3,800 households that match that.
Yeah.
All right. So they're the number one. The number two is in Cary. The zip code is 27519. Their median income is 126,000. There's 18,000 people that live in that zip code. The number three zip code is in Fayetteville. So we got two of them in our district.
It looks like it's only a neighborhood because it's got only 22 households.
Oh, that's right. So it's probably like just a little area.
Yeah.
116,000 is their median income.
Yeah.
Davidson is 28036 is the fourth zip code wealthiest at 114,000. They've got about 5,700 people that live in that area that match that. And then the fifth one is Oak Ridge, 27310. Median household income is 108, and they've got about 2,400 people that live in that match that. So those are the top. If you live in one of those top five zip codes in North Carolina, you live in the wealthiest zip codes in.
Well, Cary looks to be like the big concentration because they got 18,000 people there.
Yeah.
High tech. It's a high tech hub.
That's the triangle, right?
Yeah. Cary. The SAS Institute is there.
Yeah.
A lot of other.
SAS.
Yeah.
I wonder where 28207 is. We're 28226 here.
28226. I don't know.
Well, because probably anyway. It'd be interesting. We can Google that later.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to take my mic off and then start the music, and you can tell us where you're going to be.
All right. Because I got a schedule ahead of me.
Yes. So we'll see Ruth next week, and don't forget next week. This time we will have Stoney Rushing, the Union County Commissioner, former congressional candidate for the 9th Congressional District, Republican congressional candidate. We will have him on here. We have a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
That's
much to talk about. I'm sure we won't talk about all of it.
Okay.
So have a wonderful weekend, and
I'll let you know where I'm going to be. Okay.
Alexa,
so
Pandora.
Pardon me.
Radio from Pandora.
I'll make sure my mic is on here. I'm going to be at the movie theater tonight seeing Official Secrets at the Regal Ballantine at the 7 o'clock showing. Look it up. If it's something you might like to see, come on down and join us. Thursday night, I'm going to be seeing the musical Oliver at Theater Charlotte. Always get out and see classic musical theater. Theater Charlotte's a wonderful, wonderful theater. The Blumenthal on Friday night. I'm going to see Boys to Baghdad, a play, a wonderful play. And then Saturday, I'm just going to collapse.
All right, you got a busy weekend. Bye.